Introduction. Brilliance not required. Breakaway ideas come to those who are in the habit of looking for them. That is the simple proposition of this book, which maps out a path for professionals of all callings, a way of getting ideas that make a difference. And that way is the hunt. It's a search for ideas that's open-ended, ongoing, and always personal, dialed into who you are, what projects you're pursuing, and where you're going in your career. What's needed is a fresh batch of skills that professionals can use every day. Consider the intersecting stories of two passionate idea hunters. One is legendary. The other may well become so. When Walt Disney got the notion of building a great family theme park, he did not go looking for ideas in all the usual places. In his day, the product of choice along that line was the thrill ride amusement park, a seedy place with bad food and unfriendly employees. This was not Disney's version of a welcoming environment that would tap into the dreams of children and adults alike, so he went on a search. He was always on the trail of ideas. His quest led him all the way to Tivoli Gardens, a clean and orderly park in Copenhagen with, as one chronicler had put it, lush flowers, tame rides, and a festive family atmosphere. The television personality Art Linkletter happened to be with Disney on that trip to Denmark in 1951, which was ostensibly a vacation they took with their wives. He was making notes all the time about the lights, the chairs, the seats, and the food, Linkletter later recalled. I asked him what he was doing, and he replied, "I'm just making notes about something that I've always dreamed of, a great playground for the children and families of America." The dream became a splendid reality in 1955 with the opening of Disneyland in California. Walt Disney once quipped that he was in the business of selling happiness. Entrepreneur Puneet Nanda is in the same business but in an entirely different industry. He is better known as Dr. Fresh, president and CEO of a California-based dental hygiene company by the same name that makes products with special appeal to children. His most popular item is the Firefly, a toothbrush with flashing lights that blink for 60 seconds. The Indian immigrant did not find the idea on a list of the top 100 ideas for dental products and accessories. He got it from his daughter, who was 4 years old at the time and no more enthusiastic about brushing her teeth than any other 4-year-old. One day he told his daughter that they had to go do some chores. Her response was that she'd go only if she could find her sneakers with the flashing lights. That's when the light went off in his head. He drove out to Disneyland, bought a few pairs of blinking magnet earrings, and taped them to his daughter's toothbrush. When they arrived back home, she brushed intently for 8 minutes straight. The brightly colored Firefly, sold in retail stores nationwide, is now the linchpin of a $44.3 million company. Nanda has become the consummate hunter, devoting half his time to drumming up new ideas for product innovations. Just looking at these snapshots, you could tease out a few lessons about idea hunters. 1. They know their gig, what they're all about as professionals, and where they're heading. Selling happiness in a healthy and wholesome way is what lends identity to both the legendary Disney brand and the up-and-coming Dr. Fresh. 2. They don't let the organization, job, industry, or profession define their idea hunt. Certainly Disney did not follow in those tracks when his trusted advisors, including his brother and partner Roy, ridiculed the notion of a Mickey Mouse park, partly because it ran afoul of the thrill ride amusement park paradigm. Nanda clearly was not just listening to colleagues at dental trade shows when he designed a whole line of products, including flossing containers with blinking lights. Each went down his own idea trail. And 3. They recognized how the world around them connects with their plans and projects. Disney was ready to learn, with notebooks in hand, when he strolled through the gates of Tivoli Gardens while vacationing in Denmark. Nanda turned his daughter's fascination with flashing sneakers, nothing out of the ordinary, into a breakthrough when he connected it to his vision and projects. In fact, he hasn't stopped looking to children for ideas. He holds a national contest each year, challenging kids in the 2nd through 5th grades to invent their fantasy toothbrush. The winner in 2008 was a South Carolina girl who designed a toothbrush that speaks, reminding people to turn off the tap when they brush their teeth. She won a free trip to Disneyland. Already out there. Disneyland and the Firefly were products of idea work, which, contrary to popular impression, isn't something done only by uniquely gifted creative types. Idea work is a vital asset for all professionals today. It is highly learnable, and that doesn't mean learning to become a creative genius, because, as we'll see in these pages, high-value ideas are not necessarily created. More often than not, they're already out there, waiting to be spotted and then shaped into an innovation. The idea that launched the iPod was way out there and reeled in by Phil Schiller. A marketing executive, not a techie, Schiller did not dream up the notion of a click wheel, the lightning-fast scroll wheel that helped separate the iPod from its poor MP3 cousins. He borrowed this feature from a motley assortment of electronics products dating from the early 1980s, and by slapping the idea onto Apple's music player, Schiller secured his place in the annals of innovation. More on this in Chapter 3. As this feat illustrates, ideas aren't generated so much as they're found, and then something useful is done with them. That's why we proudly appropriate the words of Thomas Edison, who described his search for solutions as the hunt. Brilliance is optional. What we have found in our work and research is that the most successful idea hunters are not, as a rule, geniuses. Rather, they're just idea active. They have a voracious appetite for acquiring ideas, and they are skilled at setting those ideas in motion, selling them, and making them happen. They think like Miles Davis, the legendary jazz trumpeter and band leader, who once remarked, "I'm happy if I could play one new idea on a night." How do you become an idea hunter, someone who stands out with ideas in an increasingly crowded professional marketplace? It begins with embracing a new perspective in the innovative work most prized by organizations and clients today. We have seen many people arrive at such a fresh outlook in the course of our deep dive sessions, a process of idea storming and solution shaping that we developed for corporate teams worldwide, and that is now trademarked by Deloitte Consulting. No matter how smart they think they are, individual participants in these sessions come to realize that there are more ideas at the table than there are in their own brains. Teams come to find that there are more ideas in the room than there are at their tables, and still more in the building, in the city, and beyond. They discover the practice value of a deliberate, persistent, wide-ranging search for ideas. Based in part on these experiences, we have identified 4 bedrock principles for use by managers and other professionals. We call these the I, D, E, A principles. Idea. Each of which connects with crucial attitudes, habits, skills, and strategies. The first principle turns on the question, do I want to be interested or merely interesting? All of us naturally want to be interesting, but in the hunt for ideas, being interested in the world around you is of equal or greater importance. Those who excel at the hunt understand that almost anyone can hand them an incredible idea, which they are generally free to use. Because they are thinkers as well as doers, the best idea hunters also understand that intellectual curiosity is not irrelevant to business success. Idea people approach their work with drive and enthusiasm, but also with a level of intellectual seriousness. They agree with Warren Buffett, who believes, as his business partner Charlie Munger relates, that it's very hard to succeed in something unless you take the first step, which is to become very interested in it. And, we would quickly add, to become very interested in other people, too. As we show in the examples of innovators like Sam Walton, curiosity will take you further toward your goals than cleverness or even brilliance. The second principle is about diversification. Idea hunters are aware of the multitude of trails that can lead to worthwhile ideas. When setting out on a search, they always take along an assorted mix of idea sources, a collection as diverse as any investment portfolio. This is how to avoid the plague of me too ideas that come from traveling the same narrow paths as everyone else in your group or field. You don't want to be where all of the competition is, browsing the same publications, going to the same websites, comparing notes with the same people, and winding up with variations, at best, of the same tired ideas. You want to bring in thoughts that are different but applicable, seemingly unrelated but potentially valuable, whether the source is a member of your team at work or a guy who coaches your daughter's softball team. This part of idea work requires a wide intellectual bandwidth and a desire to span distances, for example, between your specialty and other specialties. That's how you go about launching what management superguru Tom Peters calls wow projects. The operative assumption should be that ideas are everywhere. The third principle says you need to exercise your idea muscles all the time, not just when you're in a brainstorming session at work. The most experienced idea hunters are exercised, engaged in daily training, though it's hardly a chore for them because they take pleasure in the hunt. Many of them keep notebooks where they record what they've seen and heard, and they connect their personal experiences and impressions to their projects and proposals. Their search is highly focused and purpose-driven. They'll scan websites that they have deemed are most likely to provoke interesting, adaptable ideas, yet they remain open to serendipity, to the idea that seems to come out of nowhere. One key to being exercised is to develop the skills of observation, which include knowing what needs to be observed closely. These skills go hand in hand with other habits of the hunt, such as recording your observations, with or without a notebook, and sketching out rough notions that you can bounce off friends and colleagues. Successful idea hunters develop these and many other habits, realizing that the pursuit of ideas doesn't start when you're faced with a difficult problem that needs a quick solution. If you wait until then, it'll be too late. The fourth principle is that you also need to be agile in your handling of ideas. You can't expect to proceed in a straight line, snatching up a single idea and taking it to market. That could happen, theoretically, but more likely, you'll need to veer left and right, catching and combining ideas that come at you from different directions, always with an eye on your projects and your gig. Ideas require deft handling, partly because of the sheer number of them that need to be in play. As Edison said, to get a good idea, you must first get a lot of ideas. Agility is required especially because these notions and impressions are worth little unless they're in motion, shifting in response to fresh data and conversation, evolving through stages of reflection and prototyping. That's why through much of the hunt, wild ideas are encouraged. Bad ideas are not a deal-breaker, and quantity is preferred over quality. The successful hunter knows that the most important thing is to keep up the idea flow. If you're looking for a brisk way of calling up these four principles, just think interested, diverse, exercised, and agile, or IDEA, idea. Ready to unlearn. This book is about learning, but it's also about unlearning. It's about altering some of our mental pictures, including the one in which we discover an idea by shutting the office door and thinking real hard, finger pressed tight against forehead. Thinking hard is, of course, necessary, and sometimes you need to close the door. But there are better ways of visualizing the hunt, which looks more like a search party in which more than one set of eyes is needed. Or picture the common areas at work, where good conversation happens, especially if you make it happen. Or the conference room, in Cupertino, California, where Schiller and the Apple team decided that a scroll wheel was the right user interface for their music player. Idea finding isn't really about sitting back and searching your brain. It's much closer to a contact sport. Still, there are commanding images in our culture that can throw you off track. The most abiding image is that of a light bulb going off above the head, the aha moment, when somebody, safely distanced from the nearest human being, or any external stimuli, comes up with a scathingly brilliant notion. Of course, the incandescent light bulb was pioneered by none other than Edison, the very symbol of the tinkering genius alone, supposedly, in his lab. Yet, as will be further told in these pages, every one of his matchless innovations was a product of elbow-to-elbow collaboration. Part of the intent of this book is to help turn off the light bulb theory of how an idea is found. We need new attitudes and strategies for the idea work each of us is poised to do. At the core of this book, we unpack the basic traits of highly successful idea hunters, whose attitudes and actions embody the 4 idea principles in chapters 2 through 5. To help illustrate these ideas, we turn to an eclectic band of idea hunters, ranging from Thomas Edison to Warren Buffett to the Arctic explorers and others, famous and not so famous, who will be our colorful guides. Along these trails, we thrash out other features of the hunt. Knowing your gig is a prerequisite. Without a sense of purpose and goals, you won't know what you're looking for, and you'll be defenseless against the demons of information overload. In Chapter 1, we explain how to discern your gig and make it work for you, and we return to this theme at several other turns. Creating great conversations is another staple of idea work. The strategic value of conversations is apparent throughout the book, and in Chapter 6 we take a close look at how to launch and continue the most effective conversations. We also present idea work recommendations following each of the IDEA chapters. These items deal successively with how to 1. Sell the best hour of the day to yourself for continued learning. 2. Take on the vital characteristics of a generalist, even if you, like most of us, are specialists in one sense or another. 3. Develop and maintain a portfolio of idea sources. And 4. Launch a fully developed idea. Finally, in the epilogue, we offer tools for helping you take stock of your progress in the course of the idea hunt. This is, to no small degree, a measure of attitude, of the realization that the best ideas exist outside of your brain and are there for the taking. So, let the learning and the unlearning begin.